Today on Notsam Wrestling, was the final boss's work really done? John Cena versus Randy Orton is official for Backlash. Aleister Black, Rusev make their return, and Jacob Fatu destroys everybody. This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling, and we are back. We are officially in our post-Mania era. We are officially looking at what the calendar, and that's wild. It feels like, even with the later WrestleMania this year, it feels like, and maybe it's because we had great Raw after Mania, great SmackDown after Mania, but it feels like WrestleMania just came and went. And I don't know. It may also be because there's so many questions coming off of WrestleMania. We'll talk about all of that. Don't forget, if you haven't yet, make sure you watch our interview or listen to our interview with Dominic Mysterio that went down in Las Vegas, part of the Notsam Wrestling live podcast at the Comedy Cellar at the Rio. That's up across the audio feeds, as well as Notsam Wrestling on YouTube. But we touched on this last week. You know, we were talking about The Rock and doing the interview with Pat McAfee, and I just find it fascinating that now that we're here in post-Mania WWE, that after a week, we can reflect back on it, maybe a little more than a week. We can reflect back on it and realize that arguably the biggest story in terms of what we're all yapping about coming off of WrestleMania and coming out of WrestleMania was the fact that The Rock was not there. It's like whether The Rock would be there or The Rock would not be there, The Rock ends up being the biggest story coming out of WrestleMania. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing doesn't matter. It's what's got everybody talking. You know, I came to you last week fresh off of his appearance on the Pat McAfee show, where he was kind of really digging in from his perspective, not just in what he thought of the main event, but kind of giving his play-by-play of how the decision to turn John Cena heel happened, the idea that was floated earlier of Cody Rhodes turning heel, a lot of information from his perspective that we probably wouldn't have thought that we would get right off of WrestleMania. And then he's leaving comments on Instagram talking about all of wrestling, every interview, every match, everything is a work. So you just kind of have to realize that before you go crazy, which then leaves me to think, and there are people who are critical of me because I think this way, but then I'm going, what is the comment itself inherently a work? If it's all a work, then it's all a work. If some of it's a work, then some of it's a work. But also, if it's truly all a work, then none of it is a work. And it all becomes this weird psychological exercise that you can just run through in cycles. I mean, I have people have feelings, as we like to say on this show, at least on the emergency versions of this show, when it comes to all this stuff. You know, I kind of thought I was somewhat fair. Maybe I wasn't last week, but then I was reading some of the comments. I don't read all the comments. I'm not a, big like, hey, don't leave that comment. Leave whatever comments you want. But there were some that were like, hey, you know what? This podcast is simply a vehicle for WWE to get their message out. And in my head, I'm like, I kind of love the idea that there are people out there that think that this multi-billion-dollar entertainment company goes, we need a narrative pushed out to the public. I know. Let's see what Sam's talking about in his basement. Let's have him talk about it. Let's have him get the message out there. Look, if that's what you think is going on, that's not a reality I want to disrupt, because it makes me seem more important than I necessarily feel like, but maybe I am. Maybe I'm underestimating myself. Because look, I think that there were a couple of things when it comes to what The Rock was doing post WrestleMania. And I want to talk about all of it. I want to talk mainly, and people were really kind of looking into it, trying to figure out if there were power dynamics at play, who the real beef was with, what this meant, who this was meant for. And that's a wild speculation that I'm all for. However, we kind of try to wildly speculate on what is actually happening on television. So I don't know about any of that. But what I do know is that The Rock is big on pulling the curtain all the way back. Not a little bit of the way back, all of the way back. And that's a sensitive thing. And that's another thing that a lot of people are talking about right now, especially as this commercial for the new WWE Netflix docuseries is coming out, where we're actually going inside the writer's room. I mean, one of the people watching got a still frame from the trailer, and it was video from the writer's room, and you could see on the whiteboard what the original card for WrestleMania was. And it was like you always had Cody and Cena up there. Roman versus Punk versus Seth was up there in some way, shape, or form. But a lot of the other matches were different. And I don't know exactly how that's going to play out. I don't know how much is going to be given away. I don't know if I'm going to feel like it's too much. I don't know if I'm going to feel okay with it, because I think for a lot of people, they don't like anything being given away. And we had this conversation when the Netflix premiere came on and that intro started talking about heels and faces. And there were many that thought that stripped it away too much. I think that kind of breaking the fourth wall, more so than we used to, is generally a good thing. I think that for fans, that's going to be sensitive territory. And that's going to be sensitive territory because we all grew up having to defend pro wrestling. We all grew up having to defend why we liked this thing. And saying that fake F word was not something, it was not something that was done with love for us. We had to go to school and we had to defend why we liked this thing and why it wasn't so fake and why it wasn't this and why it wasn't that. And so that becomes something that a lot of us wrestling fans are sensitive about. However, I also, for years, and I think I've talked about it on this podcast, wondered, like, I see these Academy Awards, right? Or these Emmy Awards, whatever they give for television. And they go, the best live television show, like the best live variety show. That's what they call it. The best live variety show. And they give it to another award show. And I go, look, I know these award shows, they have a lot of moving parts to them. But you do one a year. You spend months prepping for it. You have everybody exactly where they're supposed to be in teleprompters to let you get through every single thing you can possibly get to. What if I told you there was a variety show going on where there was insane physicality, stunt work, some in Hollywood might call it, insane choreography, dialogue, story elements, pyro, music, lighting, everything you could possibly imagine putting in. And oh yeah, we do it in an arena with 20,000 people sitting in it. And we don't do it once a year. We don't do it once a month. We don't do it once a week. What if I told you that was on 3 times a week by the same people producing that show? To me, it feels like the production of what professional wrestling is when it's done well gets no credit. And I think some of the reason it gets no credit is because people who are not like us, that are not wrestling fans, kind of poo-poo it and kind of go, well, whatever, that's just like a schlock show where a bunch of dudes show up in tights and just pretend to fight each other. And that's all it is. Instead of realizing how much is put into this. So when you have spots where you can show the world, look how much is being put into this. Look at how much thought is put into this. Look at how much effort is put into this. Look at how much work is put into this. And oh yeah, we're going to do it again in 2 days. I feel like pulling back the curtain somewhat helps get to the point where the wider audience can say, oh, there really is something going on over here. And whether they're a wrestling fan or not, whether it makes them a wrestling fan or not, that's besides the point. For me, I'm going, at least give it credit for what it is. At least give this art form credit for what it is. And the people who create this art form, be it on-screen performers or off-screen workers, credit for the amount that they're doing and what they're able to pull off and the level that they're able to pull it off on. So that's where I like kind of disrupting the suspension of disbelief. And I don't think that takes away from the show for wrestling fans. Where I start to get a little, I don't know about that, is when active storylines are being explained. Decisions that deal with what is going on actively start to be explained in a way that doesn't relate to the show, in a way that doesn't come back and reflect upon itself through the characters. Then I start going, well, this is starting to feel muddled. This is and as an audience, whether you're going to see a movie, whether you're going to see a television show, when you start to feel like things are muddled, no bueno. So I think that is a fine line that we walk. And like, I don't know if the story of how we turn John Cena heel needs to be said now, or is a story that we can visit next year after John Cena's retired. And we can tell that story the same way that like the WrestleMania 40 doc was great, but it didn't come out until all the dust had settled on WrestleMania 40. It wasn't like we were prepping for the main event and then this doc comes out and you start to realize that maybe, you know, if you're a wrestling fan watching it, that it's kind of taking you out enough that it becomes difficult to invest in what you're watching. And that, I think, is what we all want to avoid. All that said, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, whatever you want to call him, is a human being who loves professional wrestling. He loves pro wrestling. So I would love to hear from him what his philosophy is behind it. Why he would say that stuff. You know what I mean? Like to what end is it? I think that's very, very interesting. But I think for where we're at in terms of stories and in terms of the active show, the most interesting thing, and some of this I talked about last week, but I think it was a little bit brief and it was kind of coming right off of it. I think that one of the more interesting things that he said in that McAfee appearance, and one of the things that I think has resulted in a lot of people having a lot of feelings and opinions about all this, is that a lot of people expected him at WrestleMania. And when Travis Scott came out, a lot of people even more so expected him at WrestleMania. And Rock basically said, look, when I came in to help with the John Cena heel turn, I realized that the final boss's work is done. That now it's time to let the spotlight go to John Cena and Cody and let them make this their story. And I can appreciate that sentiment. I agree that John Cena turning heel for the first time in 20 plus years is big enough that you don't need any icing on that cake. You don't need any set decoration. It's massive. But Elimination Chamber raised questions that were never answered. We can't witness something happening at Elimination Chamber and then just pretend like a big element of it didn't happen if we never got an answer on it. And what I mean is, John Cena turned heel on Cody Rhodes at Elimination Chamber after The Rock looked at him and made the throat slit gesture. And that's when John Cena's face turned. Now, John Cena after Elimination Chamber, and by the way, Rock, Travis Scott, and John Cena all left together. After WrestleMania, John Cena made it clear that the heel turn was not based on The Rock, or at least based on his promos, that the heel turn was based on the feelings that he had for the audience, was based on the relationship that he had with the audience, that he had turned heel because of what the audience had done to him and how the audience had treated him. And that his mission was to ruin wrestling. And he's not ruining wrestling on assignment. He's not ruining wrestling because The Rock or anybody else told him to ruin wrestling. He's ruining wrestling because he wants to ruin wrestling because of how the audience has treated him. And I go, okay, I can even buy that story. But I need the night after Elimination Chamber for you to straight up say, I did not sell my soul to anyone. Whether The Rock was there or not, this was the result that you were going to get. Something that closes the loop, something that tells me that The Rock is not part of this story. And even if you want to go, okay, well, it's not that The Rock is not part of this story, because at some point the final boss will come back in. And I think that he will, and I think that he should. But it felt like it was building to a WrestleMania thing. I mean, even to the point where people were like, oh, maybe the Seth Paul Heyman thing couples with the final boss, and we see this group of heels to end the show. Maybe like it felt like the final boss was building some kind of army of heels that would help him control what he thought was his. And it was never said, but it was something that collectively I think a lot of people felt. So it's not like you can say, well, you looked into it too much. First of all, there's no looking into it too much. Second of all, if so many people felt this way, clearly it can't be, a bunch of, like, this isn't the Mandela effect. So I think that's ultimately what was missing, is there was no moment on the road to WrestleMania. And that could have been Rock joining via satellite. It could have just been something John Cena said by himself. You don't even need The Rock on screen for it. But just something that states that this is no longer about the final boss. If you state that, then we're good. But because that wasn't stated, it leaves it up in the air. And that's where I think people go, well, what about the final boss? Where was The Rock? Now, as I said last week, I do think that you have to look at that realistically. Go, okay, even if, let's say, we didn't realize that people would be kind of annoyed that The Rock wasn't there. I think you would have to, you'd have to assume that people would be annoyed that The Rock wasn't there. But let's say it didn't occur to anybody. I think now you go, okay, well, over the course of the next year, how do you correct that mistake? I think that it also couples with this idea, and again, I talked about this somewhat last week, that John Cena is in this position, and he did it again on SmackDown, where he has an utter hatred for the audience. And even though many are still kind of cheering him, and they were cheering him at WrestleMania, I think that John Cena will retire as a babyface. And I don't mean a heel that gets cheered babyface. I mean, we will get the John Cena that we got on January 6th Netflix. We will get the John Cena that we got last year at Money in the Bank in London when he announced this whole thing. I think that that's the John Cena that we've known for all these years. I believe that that's the John Cena that we will see at the end. I can't believe that John Cena will actually ruin wrestling. And to me, I feel like that turn and losing the WWE Championship is something that can happen at the same time. You look at this thing and you divide it up into quarters. You could divide it into thirds if you wanted to. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Act 1 is John Cena trying to get to WrestleMania for his 17th title, turning heel and winning the championship. Act 2 is his ride as champion and just ruining wrestling, counting down his appearances, and destroying everything. And Act 3 is the redemption arc. And that way that's how this is just, it's how a story is crafted. Act 3 is the redemption arc, and that's how you end a story with a happy ending, even if it looks like now it won't be happy. And I really hope that we get the final boss back for that. And I'll tell you why. Because I think that The Rock has a tremendous amount of heat on him right now from wrestling fans. That said, those same wrestling fans will go ballistic as soon as The Rock's music gets played in any building. No matter what you're feeling right now, if you are sitting in a building or you are watching live on television, and if you smell ba-da-ba-dum starts, you're going to go ballistic. It's ingrained in us as wrestling fans. The same way if the glass shatters, the same way if the dong hits. Let's rewind that a little bit. But you know what I'm saying. You're going to have a moment. You're going to have a conniption. So I think that all those feelings can be combined into one thing, into one show. And I think that the only real way that John Cena can effectively, right now, things could change. There could be a million things that happen between now and then. And a slow build back to normalcy for John Cena is, of course, possible. But I think that there is a moment, and I think that it will reflect on the Cody moment. The same way that Cody had that moment where he wasn't going to hit John Cena with the belt, and ultimately that's what cost him the title. I think that whether it's John Cena, he doesn't even have to turn on the final boss. He can just not do what the final boss tells him to do. And I think John Cena saying no to The Rock, getting in The Rock's face, maybe putting his hands on The Rock for a moment, will be enough to turn John Cena babyface. Maybe we end up with The Rock whipping John Cena with a weight belt that says Papa Cena on it. We get John Cena's dad involved. Whatever you want to do. But I think that the final boss and John Cena being on opposing sides is what you will need to turn John Cena babyface again and to have him have that, last run as a good guy. And I think that and I don't know who John Cena loses the title to. Right now, I would like for it to be Cody Rhodes. And who knows where Cody Rhodes' psyche is at right now. Who knows if he comes back and it's time for an even bigger babyface run? Who knows if we're inching towards that heel run? Who really knows right now? But I do think that the idea of John Cena not doing what the final boss wants him to do, it allowing Cody Rhodes to win the match and get his title back, is complicated enough that it will send Cody Rhodes in the direction that Cody Rhodes needs to be in. Now, I don't say that this is a black and white scenario where now, since Cody Rhodes took advantage of it, now Cody Rhodes has sold his soul and he's the final boss's guy. I don't think we need to go there. I think that Cody Rhodes can go on to something else. I think that you find somebody that does The Rock's bidding. I think that you can now have Cody Rhodes taking that WWE championship, and by, the end of Act 2, who knows who the hottest heel is? Who knows who's waiting for Cody Rhodes? Who knows what we've got? Maybe that's where Randy Orton pops back up again and says, hey, Cena cheated me, but Cody, I know you won't. And we go into Randy and Cody. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm thinking about John Cena right now. And when you go, who does The Rock's bidding? After John Cena betrays the final boss, be it through physicality or be it through just not doing his bidding, who goes after John Cena? Who does The Rock's bidding? A lot of people believe that Heyman's group, like I said earlier, is an arm of The Rock, and it's possible, but I like the idea of that Heyman group being an entirely separate story. Why not have two massive stories happening at the same time in a WWE where you've now got two pay-per-views a year that are running 2 nights in a stadium? Having big pay-per-views that have 2 stadium-worthy main events per weekend is becoming a regular thing. You need as many big stories as possible. So I say keep this one separate. And it really struck me that I was on the right path this week on Smackdown. I talked about it last week. The Rock announced that Drew McIntyre is now the face of Team Rock. Okay, we have that. Drew McIntyre and The Rock were sharing pleasantries on The Rock's IG Live. What was that all about? I thought the Drew McIntyre was anti-bloodline. Well, he's not anti-business, that's for sure. So we have that. Then I start going back and going like, but that's not enough. Because Drew's not a soldier. Drew fights for righteous reasons. The Drew McIntyre character will not just do something because you told him to do it. The Drew McIntyre character needs to believe in what he's doing and, most importantly, needs to know that he's right and have the ability to justify why he's right. Drew McIntyre, and there are some that say that the John Cena heel turn in real life wasn't confirmed until day of. Who knows? Who knows? But in reality, Drew McIntyre really didn't say anything about John Cena until the night before Elimination Chamber. The night before Elimination Chamber is when Drew McIntyre started taking real swipes at John Cena. And I remember it because it was a notable thing. He was taking legit shots at John Cena. And I'm going, okay, so Drew's focused on this now. Okay, Drew sees John Cena. Then John Cena turns heel. So you go, okay, well, Drew's a heel and John Cena's a heel. So they're probably not going to go at each other. Maybe that was just for the Elimination Chamber. But then this week on SmackDown, Drew McIntyre gets in the ring, and we'll talk about Jacob Fatu. But he stares down Jacob Fatu, and he says, you're the champion that I want to face because John Cena is a punk. And I don't have any desire to beat some punk for a title. It's meaningless. He said in so many words. I'm paraphrasing. So now what you've done is you've built in this foundation so that when Act 3 starts and The Rock has somebody ready to put John Cena down for good, Drew McIntyre is entirely logical, not just because of his partnership with The Rock, which is IRL and on the screen, but also he's established that he actually does not like John Cena, that he actually has a problem with John Cena, that The Rock is not convincing him to do something that he doesn't want to do with promises of fame and fortune. Drew McIntyre does not have to sell his soul to The Rock because what The Rock wants done is something that Drew McIntyre already wants done. So Drew McIntyre is able to get into this role where he's doing The Rock's bidding, but he's still able to say, I'm doing it because I'm right. And to me, there's just too much there. Not only that, I mean, I can think of nothing better from where we are today than Cena turning on Rock and turning face after losing the title because Drew and Cena are both heels right now, but Drew still expressed problems with John Cena because Drew is operating from this reality-based place in that character's head. So Cena turning babyface and then ending the year in a rivalry with Drew McIntyre, because if John Cena ends his year in a rivalry with Drew McIntyre, then Drew McIntyre has now become the chosen one, as was prophesized years and years and years ago. And by the way, spoiler alert, ultimately, Drew beats John Cena. And we go into 2026 with Drew McIntyre still not world champion, but having been the one to beat John Cena. I mean, it feels like it'll work to me. Interesting times, though. Very, very interesting times. Let's talk about the immediate John Cena versus Randy Orton is official. It is the main event for Backlash. John Cena versus Randy Orton. I don't think anybody's booing Randy Orton. Not right now. It's really interesting seeing these two guys together. This story of Randy Orton and John Cena. Because already you're getting a taste of the depth of what this John Cena title reign can be. Because the story of Cody and John and the story of Randy and John are two completely different stories. And I didn't even really consider it until we saw it in the ring. But John Cena and Cody Rhodes were telling this story of Cody's ultimate challenge being the person that was in the position that Cody is in now before Cody was there. That Cody is so good, but can he beat the guy that made that position for him? Cody, in a way, has something to prove to John Cena. It's the new guard versus the old guard. There's a big difference in Randy Orton because there's nothing in Randy Orton that has anything to prove to John Cena. Randy Orton is respectful, but Randy Orton is not in awe of John Cena. Randy Orton and John Cena have wrestled 1,487 times. Randy Orton and John Cena are joined at the hip. Some would say each other's greatest rivals, came up at the exact same time, went through everything together. So now the fact that we get John Cena versus Randy Orton at Backlash, it becomes about seeing this match. It becomes about 20 years later seeing this match and maybe seeing this match on the biggest marquee that it's been on. And I don't mean the Backlash pay-per-view specifically. I more mean 2025 WWE. That in 2025 WWE, when by a lot of metrics, most metrics, the company has never been bigger, John Cena versus Randy Orton still has the same, if not greater, value as a marquee match than it ever did. So I also feel like as I'm looking at John Cena and Randy Orton, that no matter how open-ended the story with The Rock is, and we're all still trying to figure it out, we're now getting into this pocket where John Cena is able to be villain John Cena, the WWE champion, and it starts with Randy Orton. So Cena comes out on SmackDown to start the show. 26 appearances left. He's got his Dallas-Fort Worth gear on. And Randy interrupts him. The Randy music plays. And Randy, of all things, I mean, you talk about coming from a place that one wouldn't expect. You talk about getting probably too personal. Randy Orton starts in on Cena about how this isn't the John Cena that I know. What about all the Make-A-Wish kids? What about this? What about that? You're trying to fill a void. John Cena, and instead of the old Randy Orton would have said, you got to meet me in the parking lot. I'm going to beat you down into oblivion. I'm going to throw you down a flight of stairs. I'm going to end your career. 2025 Randy Orton says, John, you need to have some kids, man. You need to become a father. And everybody, it's just so like Randy said it from such a wholesome dad perspective, but it is so personal and so not one's place to say something like that in public that you go, oh, but Randy's like, no, I'm just saying, I think it'll make him happy. Little John Cena's running around. Do, 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 do. You can't see any of them. It'll be great. And John claims that Randy Orton is parent-shaming him. I do love that this version of John Cena speaks in psychiatrist language. Like, this version of John Cena is coming across very much like he took 3 psychology classes during his first year of college and is now an expert. You're coming out here and parent-shaming me. This is a not a healthy relationship. This is that. This is this. And he said that, listen, Cena's not wrong. It is a little parent-shamey the idea, I mean, look, I got 3 kids, okay? I think that there are a lot of people that I know that might be able to get their lives together a little bit more if they just had some kids. These people go walking around thinking that the nonsense that they have going on in their life is the end-all, be-all. Meanwhile, maybe realize there's something bigger than yourself, have a couple kids, and raise them. I don't know. I get it. But at the same time, if that's not your thing, that's not your thing. And I would never push that upon anybody because I wouldn't want bad parents having kids either. I wouldn't want selfish people having kids. You know, be selfish. It's your world. But it was kind of parent-shaming. When Cena said, and you're parent-shaming me in front of all these people, I was like, yeah, you were kind of parent-shaming him there, Randy. I get what you were saying, but you were parent-shaming him a little bit. I mean, it's so crazy that these two that we watched when they were in their 20s going at each other, we now sit there. It really makes you realize where you're at in life. When you look at John Cena and Randy Orton in the middle of a ring on Friday Night SmackDown, arguing the merits of having children. I never would have thought when I was glued to that Ruthless Aggression era, I never would have thought, I can't wait till the one day I get to see these two argue over whether or not it's a good thing that John Cena should have children. Of course, Cena twisted it, and he said, you know why I didn't have kids? Because I was raising all of theirs. He was raising our children, all the little kids that love John Cena. He was raising our children, and not only was he raising our children, but he was doing a better job than we were at raising our children. John Cena gets into it. I mean, when John Cena starts getting into it with this little kid, he wasn't on camera, but he said there was a 6-year-old flipping him off. He tells the kid, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. And like starts really fighting, like looking at the kid like, you want to go? You want to throw hands, kid? Like he's going to fight the 6-year-old if the 6-year-old doesn't calm down. I mean, this John Cena is relentless. Batshit is what he is. He's crazy. Cena says, you know, he goes back into ruining wrestling. Orton doesn't want him to ruin wrestling. He said wrestling has brought him everything he's had since he came out of the womb. He said, I'm 3 generations in. This will continue to give me my entire life until I'm dead in the ground. He said, John, I'm a piece of furniture around here. I'm never leaving. You? You're a guest. And everybody went, oh, a guest in your own home. Well, he said that he wants to erase the lineage of the Ortons. He wants to erase the generations of Ortons. And he's not going to fight him in Texas. He's going to fight him in St. Louis because he wants to go to Randy Orton's hometown and do it in front of all of his loved ones. The match is made official. John Cena versus Randy Orton. John Cena is talking, throws him the title, then takes a cheap shot, puts the boots to him before Randy is able to jump up and hit that RKO. You know, I also liked going back to, you know, pulling back the curtain, breaking the fourth wall. I like that Randy Orton brought up the parallel timeline that we're in, where Randy's a good guy and John Cena's a bad guy. You know, I like that was brought up. You know, and like I said, watching this, it really does feel like the evolution of what is possible with this John Cena character. With the fact that, like, you know, what's rule number 3? Everything counts. John Cena's past counts. What John Cena's done with other people counts. What John Cena's interaction with people like Randy Orton, CM Punk, all of it counts. Now, I will say my one pet peeve, and it's not a pet peeve yet, but I can feel that it's going to become a pet peeve, is that, and I get that John Cena is the heel here. I get that John Cena is playing that role, and he's doing a great job, and I agree with it. He's doing an incredible job. But I would like for there to be some point where John Cena gets the best of the person that he's in the ring with in terms of physicality. Like, John Cena gets the cheap shots in. Randy Orton ends it with an RKO. And John Cena's laid out. We've now gotten, in the build to WrestleMania, John Cena got laid out by Crossroads twice to end promos, with John Cena laying and Cody standing tall. We're now twice already since WrestleMania, and there's only been that many shows, that John Cena has been laid out by an RKO on the way to Backlash. I kind of want to go in, I want to go in with the knowledge that John Cena is better than people. I want to go in with the knowledge that John Cena is good at this and has the ability to leave people laying. I get that, bad guys get left laying by good guys, and that way when the bad guy wins, the good guy still has something, whatever it is. But if you do that every time, it just becomes a little much because you know where it's going. But all that said, I do think that these two are really showcasing now what they're capable of. I can't believe that Backlash is in less than 3 weeks at this point. We're already getting Cena versus Orton. So I can't wait to see it. And, it'll be interesting to see at what point and how Cody comes back from any of this. Guys, pardon the interruption, but if you want the taste of a milkshake without the extra pounds of a milkshake, you need Huel. Huel is a complete meal in a bottle that tastes just like a milkshake, but it's good for you. It has 35 grams of protein and 27 vitamins and minerals to keep you going all day long. I love it. It saves me time. I can get it down. It tastes good. It gives me everything that I need. I usually go for vanilla. You can choose chocolate if you want it. Both are really incredible. Join the community of Hooligans with this exclusive offer for new customers. 15% off, plus a free gift using code NOTSAM at Huel.com. That's 15% off, plus a free gift for new customers with code NOTSAM at Huel.com. See show notes for the terms and conditions. Unlock a healthier, easier way to eat with Huel. Nutritionally complete meals in minutes so you can focus on what really matters. I think we're in for a lot. I think we're in for quite a bit as this thing unfolds. A big part of WrestleMania, the week after WrestleMania, not only seeing so many members of the NXT women on Raw, seeing that whole thing with Stephanie Vaquer coming in and facing Io Sky, and then Roxanne Perez interfering, and then Julia and the whole thing happening. Julia and Rhea Ripley stare each other down. The match is made official for this week on Raw. We're getting Rhea Ripley versus Roxanne Perez. On SmackDown, Fraxium, not only on the show, but Nathan Frazier and Fraxium officially announced as members of the SmackDown roster. That tag team is on SmackDown. But also, we got the return of Rusev on Monday Night Raw, and we got the return of Aleister Black on SmackDown. Two names that have been wildly speculated upon for some time now. We now have confirmation. They are back on Raw. We got Rusev taking down the Alpha Academy after the New Day escaped. The idea being that had New Day not escaped, Rusev would have taken them down too. Rusev is there, he says, to take what's his, and that's everything. And then on SmackDown, it was Aleister Black coming out and wrecking The Miz. The Miz cutting a promo, the lights go out, Aleister Black comes out, and he lays out The Miz entirely with a swift kick right to the face. It was so refreshing, and I felt it immediately, to see Aleister Black get raised up for his entrance, and we didn't get the creaking sound. Do you remember that? When Aleister Black was in NXT, and he used to be raised up like that on that board, almost like a vampire, like Nosferatu coming to life. And then he got to the main roster, and they added the... And it was like, what is that? Is this like old-timey radio? Are those Foley sound effects? Not Mick Foley sound effects. Foley sound effects? to see the entrance, like it's almost like for some of these, I feel like Triple H going, let me do what I always wanted to do with some of these people, what I always intended to do when I had them in NXT. And maybe that's what you got with Aleister Black. Now it's years removed. So clearly it's not exactly the same, but hopefully it's more. It's exemplified. It's better. I mean, those two, by the way, both came back in incredible shape. Probably the best shape I've seen Aleister Black or Rusev in ever. I mean, just lean and awesome. And Rusev just going out there and being an absolute monster, being a beast. No comedy, no nothing. Just tearing people up. And a lot of people don't realize this. It should be noted that it was a fitting return for both of them because Monday was actually Rusev Day. I don't know if you guys were checking your calendar, but it was Rusev Day on Monday. So I don't know if that was on purpose or just like it was just ironic. It is going to be interesting to see, though, because I was thinking a lot about how do they fit on the rosters as the rosters are. And as far as monsters, like Rusev coming in as a monster that tears people apart, we do already have monsters. We've got Bronson Reed. We've got Braun Strowman. Like, you've got people who are there to tear people apart. And as far as Aleister Black goes, when it comes to being that sort of dark, brooding, witchy character, we've got characters like that. We've got Karrion Kross, who lends himself to that. We've got the Wyatt Six, who lend themselves to that. Now, that said, I think that there's nuance that can be added that makes everybody different. And if anything, it's less that people are going to be gasping for airtime and more that maybe you have built-in opponents now. Like maybe you have this built-in, I don't know, Karrion Kross versus Aleister Black thing, eventually Uncle Howdy versus Aleister Black. Maybe you've got an eventual Bronson Reed versus Rusev or Braun Strowman versus Rusev or something like that. I was thinking about those potential big first opponents for both of them. And, I do think Karrion Kross versus Aleister Black would be great, but Karrion Kross is on Raw and Aleister Black is on SmackDown. So if you don't want to fiddle with the rosters at all, and you just want to go based on the rosters that are in front of us, where do you think these two guys could go? I think like Rusev versus Sheamus would be great. I think Rusev and Penta would be a lot of fun. But before long, I think a couple of opponents like that who are big name opponents that Rusev can get through. But I think before too long, you have a pretty good world heavyweight title contender in Rusev. I think the idea of Rusev versus Jey Uso is a pretty good idea. The idea that like Jey, after winning the world title, now not only has to deal with the locker room, but he's got new people coming into the locker room all the time that want that title. And that could give you a scenario where you've got Rusev versus Jimmy Uso. You got Rusev versus Sami Zayn. And once he's able to get past both of them, now you can do Rusev versus Jey Uso, and this be a big kind of test for Jey Uso as the world heavyweight champion. I think that could be a lot of fun. As far as Aleister Black goes, I think Aleister Black versus Shinsuke Nakamura would be really, really good. But what I'd really love to see, and I think it would involve Aleister Black being a little bit more of a heel, but I would love to see there be a styles kind of juxtaposed against each other. I would love to see Aleister Black versus LA Knight. Because that would mean that if people were really on the side of LA Knight, that the Aleister Black character would have to survive LA Knight making fun of him. And depending on how on their side they are, if Aleister Black is being taken seriously, LA Knight would have to live in that world where it's like the jokes aren't working because they're taking Aleister Black seriously. And then what happens when it gets in the ring? LA Knight, who wrestles a much more professional wrestling style, whereas Aleister Black wrestles more of like a kickboxer type of style. What happens when you get in there with that? I think LA Knight versus Aleister Black could be a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, I feel like one of the great things about the coming off of WrestleMania is looking not just at who is getting launched into superstardom, right? Like not just looking at, okay, we've got, Braun Breaker as a new main event guy because of what he's doing with Seth and Paul Heyman. And that's great. I love that. But I also love seeing, okay, the slow build starts now for this person, or the slow build that's already been happening, the ramp, it gets ramped up big time right now. And that person for me is Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu, and you know what I'm talking about when I talk about Jacob Fatu. I'm talking about Jacob Fatu! Absolute killer on SmackDown. And I mean, all you have to do is listen to the audience. Solo Sikoa comes in. And by the way, this role was Solo Sikoa's role a year or two ago. And now Solo has evolved into something completely else. And the fact that Solo is able to be this kind of smarmy, swaggy Solo guy so well, and for most of the Bloodline story, he didn't say a word, tells you that Solo has a lot of tools in the box. Solo has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. I think people are underestimating how low-key, ultra-talented Solo Sikoa may really be. But so you've got Solo in there, and he gets in the ring, and he's taking credit for Jacob Fatu. He's calling him the future, which we already knew he was the future. He says that. But he's doing it in a way where he's like, let me do the talking for you, because I still want to be the leader of this. Whatever this team is that you and I have, I want to be the one who's in charge, but I don't want you to know that you should be in charge. So I'm just going to be the guy in charge, but I'm going to spend all my time blowing you up. So it's almost like, well, things are really good, so why would I push Solo out? Everything's working out great, except when Solo's reminding the world that the rest of his family didn't want Jacob Fatu anywhere near this place, and that Solo's the one that brought him in. He starts giving himself a little too many pats on the back. He's not manipulating as well as he should be doing. He hasn't learned everything there is to learn from Roman Reigns, because Jacob Fatu gets a little bit fed up with Solo Sikoa when Solo said the reason he's the U.S. champion is because of me. Jacob snatches the mic out of Solo's hand, and he says, and by the way, even when Jacob starts doing that, I'm sorry if that was loud. I was just trying to do it for effect. Even when Jacob is like tapping on the mic, he's even cool when he's tapping on the mic. He's amazing. But Fatu says, to just get one thing straight, that he would have done it. He told Solo, he said, I told you I'm going to do it with or without you. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, and Solo like backs down immediately, like realizes, okay, maybe I put too much up front. I got to make sure that I stay in good graces with this werewolf. LA Knight interrupts him. Drew McIntyre interrupts him. Damian Priest makes his presence known. Well, we get the LA Knight versus Drew McIntyre match to find out who's going to be the number one contender. Damian Priest interrupts the match, takes out Drew McIntyre. But in the process, Jacob Fatu comes and takes out both Damian Priest and LA Knight. He's doing jump up moonsaults in a backwards football jersey that says Fatu on it. And it is unreal. The crowd is losing their minds. The crowd is chanting Fatu. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Jacob Fatu, protect nobody. It's time to let this guy just kill everybody. I'm talking about spend the year having Jacob Fatu kill everyone, even the people that I like. I don't care. LA Knight, Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, John Cena, AJ Styles, CM Punk, whoever you have to have Jacob Fatu kill, have him kill them all. Because every time that he adds another scalp to his collection, every time he kills another superstar, he is going to get more and more and more popular until you're left with whoever the champion is, until you're left with either Jacob versus Roman, Jacob versus Cody, Jacob versus whoever. If you play this thing right, this guy just becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger star to the point that the moon is the only place to go. If you just let Jacob Fatu kill people, he's main eventing WrestleMania next year. I mean, can you imagine Jacob Fatu getting into the Royal Rumble at number 17 and he just starts eliminating people and he just eliminates everybody and wins the damn thing? You know what I mean? Everybody. At some point, he's going to get fed up with Solo Sikoa. And when Solo Sikoa gets it from Jacob Fatu, the walls will come crumbling down. It does not take a genius to figure this out. Jacob Fatu is in very rare air. And I think the audience is going to go with him on this ride. You don't want to go too slow with it. There's not, you don't have to peel. It's not an onion here. Okay? This is a banana. You peel it once and it's right there for you. It's everything you needed. This is a banana when you have been potassium starved for years. One peel, introduce it, and there you go. It's everything you wanted. We all need to get in where we fit in when it comes to Jacob Fatu, because that, to me, there's so much going on right now that's distracting from it. Whether it's the debuts of Rusev and Aleister Black, whether it's the formation of Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins, and Braun Breaker, whether it's Roman Reigns and CM Punk being on the same team, whether it's Cody Rhodes being conspicuous by his absence, John Cena's heel turn, The Rock doing interviews, Randy Orton getting ready to challenge for the WWE Championship as a babyface. All of that is just cover for the fact that what's right under the surface is the rise of Jacob Fatu. And I think it's going to hit, and I think it's going to hit hard. And when it does, it is going to be absolutely amazing. I mean, protect nobody. That is my edict. When it comes to Jacob Fatu. And go progressively. Go slowly. Start with, fans know who's on what level. Climb that ladder rung by rung. Don't have him kill everybody in one shot. Have him kill somebody that's on rung 1. Go up to rung 2, to rung 3, to rung 4. And then until, you turn around and you realize it's undeniable. He's killed every rung. He's killed everybody on this ladder. And now he sits at the top. And there's only one place for him to go. And that's the main event. And hopefully it takes you until about April of next year to get there. And hopefully it happens in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. Because he is just an animal. I don't have to tell you guys. He's my fave. Before we get to emails, I would suggest turning on Smackdown from this week. That TLC main event, when they advertised that there was just a TLC match happening on SmackDown, I said, are you kidding me? Street Profits, DIY, Motor City Machine Guns, the perfect match to be the last match of that clump of WrestleMania. And it was fabulous. It was the perfect match of, let's show them that we should have been on the show. And I think everybody left that TLC match going, that TLC match should have been on WrestleMania. It was phenomenal. Street Profits, Montez climbing up the inside of the ladder, springboarding on, so good. Top to bottom, so good. The only thing that I would change about that TLC match is the Dumbo fans that are chanting, "We want tables." It's a TLC match. That's what the T is for. I promise. I promise you, you will get your tables. In due time, you will get your tables. Leave it alone. Let the guys do their thing. Let the wrestlers do their jobs. They will pull the tables out. You will enjoy it. They know that you want tables. Nobody's confused about it. TLC match, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's hear what you guys thought. So much going on this week. I'm anxious to hear from where you guys are at. Let's get into the emails. NotSamWrestling@gmail.com. By the way, the t-shirts from Las Vegas are up. If you're looking for those shirts, I'll have a link in the description. But they are up. My friend Wrestling for Sale is helping me sell them. So it's just whatever's left. We're not printing anymore. So whatever's left, they're up now. I'll send the link out on social, and it'll be in the podcast description as well. Let's go to Dirk. Dirk, what are some things under Kayfabe that you think are pretty ridiculous, but as fans, we just accept and don't think anything of? That's an interesting question. A few I can think of are hordes of officials hanging out in the back almost on call to break up brawls. Well, you got to have security, big security team. Very illegal weapons / foreign objects just hanging around the ring. Yeah, it is true. They have given up on the, like, there are no folding tables in WWE. The commentators have specially made tables. Nowhere near the ring is there a folding table. And when the commentator tables break, they don't replace them with folding tables. They should think about replacing them with folding tables to have some kind of logical storyline answer as to why those tables are under the ring. But at no point do they have folding tables around the ringside area. Also, not sure what all those ladders are for. And my favorite, arguing with my son, the El Grande Americano truly isn't Chad Gable. I don't think he is. P.S. If Otis doesn't come out in a luchador mask named La Oruga, the caterpillar, to attack El Grande Americano, what are we even doing? That's not a bad idea. Dirk, good email. I liked all that, actually. Pretty good stuff. T-Rock writes in, how many times is Roman Reigns going to keep turning his back while in the ring to people? Except for Jay, who super kicked him to the front, our tribal chief should be smarter than that. It'd be nice in the future when in the same situation to have Roman quickly turn around and catch the person in the act. So that way we know Roman has learned from his previous mistakes. He's obviously no Iron Man. He's a trusting guy. That's his one weakness. He trusts people. Sorry. Brian writes in, big fan. Love your deep analysis of WWE stories. I love my deep analysis of WWE stories as well. I was thinking about the end of Cena Cody at Mania and realized you could argue there was more symbolism in the ending than just the idea of John having to make a choice and choosing, or of Cody having to make a choice and choosing to try to be honorable. Something else Cena said to Cody after he won the title from Reigns. The title gets heavier the more you hold it. The title got so heavy at that moment that Cody literally dropped it instead of hitting Cena with it. During his year as champion, Cody ended his feud with former friend AJ Styles by smashing him with the stairs. He ended his feud with former friend Kevin Owens by slamming him headfirst through the ladder. At first, I thought that made Cody's decision with Cena inconsistent. But really, the pain of going through those feuds made the title metaphorically heavier for Cody, and when faced with again choosing violence against a former friend, and this time hero and mentor, the belt and the burden were too heavy, and Cody literally couldn't hold it up anymore. Then, if the title gets heavier the more you hold it, and Cena was able to hold the title for the record 17th time, that means that symbolically the WWE title belt was arguably the heaviest it's ever been when Cena hit Cody with it, making the most devastating belt shot of all time and becoming a perfect symbolic way to end the match. Okay, I can't go with you on the idea that metaphorically the belt was heavy and therefore it hurt more. That's stupid. That's absurd. That makes no sense whatsoever. However, I can go with you in the idea that Cody didn't hit Cena with the belt, not only because he wanted to do the right thing, but because the title reign had exhausted him. That in a split second, he went, I can't keep doing this. First part of the email, I'll go with you. The part where you're like, and the title was at its most heaviest. So, of course, Cody Rhodes was knocked unconscious by it. That would be literally its heaviest. That's a totally different thing. It hasn't actually had weight added to it. So, first one, I'll go with you. Second, that's absurd. And you got greedy. You can't get greedy. When you come up with these ideas that you go, oh, maybe I'm onto something. Sometimes you got to know if you keep going, you've gone too far. You're going to have to go back a little bit. Don't get greedy. Eric writes in, thank you for making a smart fan. I listen to you, Bully Ray, and Tommy over on Busted Open. You all say that Paul is always working. Everything counts. I found it interesting at Paul's Hall of Fame speech. By name, he says Braun, Rhea, Carmelo, Trick. Now he's with Braun. Could Trick be the fourth member in the group? Is there a way they could add Rhea to the group? No, I don't think they're going to add Rhea to the group. I just think that she's too big on her own. And I don't think it would be. I think she's already a main eventer. Trick Williams, I don't know. It doesn't, to me, I don't know. I feel like Braun Breaker is already the young one. And also, you have to go with people that, like Braun Breaker, you look at and you're like, no duh. You'd be crazy to not think that that guy is going to be a world champion. He's clearly going to be a world champion. So if you're going to go with new people, that's kind of the direction that you have to go in. Because in the original Evolution, people felt that way about both Batista and Randy Orton. Trick Williams is one of those that could be a world champion, but it's not as concrete as it is with Braun Breaker. Avik writes in, what's the haps from Calcutta, India until next week? Which Mania did you enjoy more, 40 or 41? And which is your favorite Mania you attended? I honestly, well, I preferred 40 over 41. And if I'm just going by feeling, I'm not talking about now what's the better WrestleMania. I'm talking about which WrestleMania did I have the best time at? It was probably 38. Roman versus Brock, KO versus Austin, Cody returns. WrestleMania 38 is probably the best time I ever had in the building. But 40 was pretty damn good too. Okay. Sarah, literally, Sarah in Tennessee, you wrote so much. All right, I'm going to do it because, I mean, it takes balls. After all the complaining I do about long emails, for you to write an email this long is insane. First, I want to acknowledge my original podcast tribal chief. I hope you and the family are well. How can we not be? By now, I know you've given us a lot of processing and feeling, recovery, and time. When you said what you feel is dismay, my response was, that's the word. I couldn't figure out what I was feeling, and you gave it a name. Thank you for all that you do. I appreciate you. Please forgive what feels like a long email. Oh, it looks like a long email. It doesn't just feel that way. I have a few thoughts that feels like it's not what's being talked about yet. Feels like it's what's under all the bluster. Maybe some of this has been addressed. Maybe some of it hasn't by the time we get to the emails. Okay. I'm fighting the urge of go away heat after WrestleMania Night 2. My first 30 minutes after it ended, my thoughts started circling around after the shock had passed. Should I refund or sell my Smackdown tickets that I have for the end of May in Knoxville? The only reason I haven't is Cody is still slated to be there. Listen, like, everybody's got to relax with that stuff. If you're a wrestling fan, like, realize that, like, you got to let these stories play out or just time play out. There were people in the Notsam Wrestling Discord that were like, I'm done being a wrestling fan. See you guys later. And, like, I was laughing at them because 24 hours later, you've got a great Raw. And then later in the week, you've got an amazing SmackDown. You know what, Sarah? I can't. I appreciate your email. It's just too damn long. It's too long. It's not fair to everybody else. Michael writes in, I love you, not Sam.
Fatu!
I was contemplating what you said about Cena becoming good again before he retires. What about this scenario? I think Cena will do what he said he's going to do. He's going to ruin wrestling by remaining selfish the entire run. He will do the ultimate heel move at the end and win his final match, leaving with the championship. The countdown clock he introduced will keep everyone thinking, when will he turn good again? Will keep everybody thinking when he will turn good again before the end, or who will defeat him for the championship. But it will never come and will leave the WWE worse than when he found it, unlike all the other wrestlers. What do you think? Mike, I think you just you didn't have to write that in an email. You could just say, what if John Cena literally does what's in his promo? And I'd say, yeah, no, I think he's going to do something else. This isn't, you're asking me, what do I think he'll literally do what he's been saying in all of his promos? No, I think the thing that I said is more likely. But I mean, I'm not saying what you're saying couldn't happen, but I am saying that you wrote a whole email that was literally his promo. That's all. I appreciate the email. I appreciate you listening. But I think that's pretty much verbatim what he says he's going to do. And I don't think that's what he's going to do. Let's go to, Nick. Dear Sam, I acknowledge you as my only podcast tribal chief. With the purchase of AAA, do you think WWE will keep the tradition of using the six-sided ring for big events or get rid of it altogether? Interesting. I'm a huge fan of the six-sided ring ever since the older days of TNA wrestling. I hope that they keep it. I always thought the six-sided ring, and people will say, yeah, but it's really funny to me when fans tell me, yeah, but the six-sided ring is more difficult to work in. I go, to work in? They go, yeah. I go, you've worked in a six-sided ring. They go, no. I go, have you worked in a four-sided ring? They go, no. I go, have you worked? I don't just mean in wrestling. I mean in what do you mean? Don't tell me, unless you are a wrestler, then I will listen to you all the live long day about what ring is more difficult to wrestle in. But if I come to you as just a guy who built a podcast studio in his basement and said, this is a more difficult ring to work in, know that I am totally full of it. I don't wrestle. I've never been a wrestler, so I don't know that. I know as a fan, I enjoy the differentiation that the six-sided ring brings with it. I hope that they do not change that for AAA. I wish TNA had never lost the six-sided ring. I think the six-sided ring does a great thing it's the old test of you're clicking around channels, and the minute you see it, you know it's something different. And you can identify it with a certain brand. So no, I think it's a good thing. I'm with you. Let's see. Okay. Michael, been listening to your show for about 10 years now. Look at you. It's been my wrestling lifeline when there were those lulls in my watching the product. Rule number 3, I know. That's crazy, right? I've been doing this podcast for over 10 years. No lulls. Every week I've come up and here's what I thought about wrestling this week. And I could have done it for 30 years. Speaking of the rules, everything counts. I know you're an analyst for WWE as well as the OPTC. That's true. But they told us Backlash would be Cena versus Orton a month ago. In a graphics for tickets being on sale that was shown on Smackdown. As you always say, it's not real unless they have a graphic. Well, they had a graphic before we even got to WrestleMania, which is wild to me. Thoughts on this? Did they make a goof, or were they telling us Cena winning wasn't a prediction? It would be a spoiler. Okay, I'm going to click on the thing because I think I know the exact graphic. Okay, I'm looking at the graphic right now. It's the same graphic we all saw. It is a graphic that says it's in the corner of the screen, and it says Backlash tickets on sale X, Y, and Z. And it's a picture of John Cena and a picture of Randy Orton. At no point did they say it will be John Cena versus Randy Orton. What it says is John Cena and Randy Orton will both be at Backlash. That is an extremely different scenario. They're saying John Cena because he's John Cena. You should know If you buy a ticket to Backlash, you'll see John Cena. Oh, that's worth buying a ticket. You should know, if you buy a ticket to Backlash in St. Louis, you'll see the hometown guy, Randy Orton. Oh, I'll buy a ticket to that. They are both advertised to be at Backlash. But at no point, there is no VS in front of them. There is no nothing. At no point did anybody specifically say John Cena versus Randy Orton, nor did the graphics say John Cena versus Randy Orton until this week on SmackDown. All right, one more email. This is the last one. Andrew writes in, what if Rusev is added to the Dangerous Alliance group? I mean, I guess if you need a heater, right? It could be, but like, did you come back to the WWE? Like, you're finally back and you just kind of randomly join the Dangerous Alliance? You know, doesn't work for me really, because what's the connection with Paul Heyman there? He's literally been in a different company for 5 years. Was he calling Paul Heyman the whole time? We just didn't know. I don't know. I don't want to water it down. And also, who's to say if there's even another member being added? It's okay with 2. I'm fine if there is, but I don't think that it's a given that there is. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Notsam Wrestling. Every podcast goes up there in its entirety. Subscribe to the audio feeds on Apple and Spotify, the SiriusXM app. Get your t-shirts from Las Vegas. There's a link in the description. And yes, I will see you guys very, very soon. Have a good one, everybody.